The men noticed it before anyone else. Stone by stone, the tower was pulling to one side. Not much, just enough to feel wrong. They told themselves it was the ground settling. They told themselves it would stop, so they kept laying stone. High above the city, the most beautiful bell tower in the world had already begun to fall. It would just take centuries. Go back to a city drunk on its own success. Pisa ruled the sea. Its ships came home heavy with gold and marble. And the city wanted the world to know it. So they built a cathedral, a baptistery, and beside them a bell tower to crown it all. White marble, round, delicate, a ring of arches climbing into the sky. Nothing like it existed anywhere. The man who began it is remembered as Bonanno Pisano. We know almost nothing about him, but we know his ambition. He wanted the finest tower in the Christian world. He wanted a city made immortal in stone. The ground broke. The marble rose. The tower was flawless. Pisa gathered to watch it grow, proud, certain, unstoppable, and no one in that crowd could have known. The tower was already doomed. Not by an earthquake, not by war, not by any enemy. It was doomed by a decision made before a single stone was laid. A quiet, invisible mistake, hidden in the earth beneath their feet. And it was waiting. It happened while the tower was still young. The workers had raised only a few floors. And then someone looked up. The tower was no longer straight, it leaned. Softly, patiently, toward the south. At first they blamed themselves, a bad measurement, a crooked stone. So they checked. The stones were true, the tower was not. Word moved through the workyard like cold water. The ground was moving, slowly, silently. It was swallowing one corner of their masterpiece. The men who built it knew. You cannot lay stone every day and not feel the floor tilt beneath you. They felt it in their tools, they felt it in their footing. Some of them, we can be sure, said the obvious thing. Stop. Stop building. Fix what lies beneath, but you do not tell a proud republic that its monument is sinking. There were reputations at stake, there was money already spent. There was a city watching, so the warning was swallowed, just like the corner in the mud. And then they made a choice that should chill you. They did not stop. They did not dig down to find the truth. Instead, they tried to hide it. As the tower rose, the builders began to cheat the stone. On the sinking side, they cut each floor a little taller. On the high side, a little shorter. Floor by floor, they bent the tower back toward the sky. From the street, it almost looked straight. It was a lie, told in marble. They were not fixing the flaw, they were disguising it. This is one of hundreds. Subscribe if you want the rest. A builder named Giovanni di Simone took up the work and curved it harder still. He built into the lean, chasing it upward story after story. And with every story the tower grew heavier. Every new stone pressed down harder on the thing that was already failing. They were not saving the tower. They were loading the trap, and still no one looked down. No one asked the only question that mattered. What is under the tower? Then the work simply stopped. Wars came. The money ran dry, the city turned away, and the half-built tower was left alone. For 100 years it stood there, unfinished, tilting. A crippled thing against the sky, no cranes, no voices, no hammers, just wind moving through empty arches, and the ground still working in the dark, because the leaning never stopped. Year after year the tower crept further from through, too slow to see, too steady to deny. Long after Bonanno was dust, it kept moving. Century after century it edged toward the tipping point, toward the exact angle where marble stops standing and starts falling. And in our own time it arrived there. The measurements grew frightening. The tower was accelerating. They cleared the visitors. They locked the doors. The most famous building on earth fell silent. Engineers stood at its base and did the math, and the math said it was going to come down. Not in another century, soon. The answer had been under their feet the entire time. When the engineers finally dug, they found the truth the builders had run from. The tower had no real foundation. It sat on a base barely 3 meters deep, and beneath that base there was no rock, there was clay. Soft, fine clay, sand, and water. Ground that behaves less like stone and more like a sponge. Press down on one side and it gives. That was the flaw. That was everything. The tower was heavier on the south, so the south sank first. The soil squeezed out beneath one edge, and the tower followed it down. Nothing built on top could ever fix that. The taller floors, the curve, the clever cheating in the stone, all of it was decoration on a wound. The disease was never in the marble. It was in the earth the builders chose and never tested. The flaw was set the day they picked that ground, before the design, before the arches, before the first stone. Everything that came after was just the tower obeying gravity, slowly, politely, for 800 years. Saving it took the humility the builders never had. Modern engineers did the one thing the medieval masters refused. They looked down. Carefully, secretly, they drew soil out from beneath the high side. They let the tower settle back just a little, just enough. They pulled it away from the edge of falling, and it worked. For now the tower is safe. But sit with what the investigation really found. The soil was the flaw. The soil was not the failure was human. Men stood on that tower and felt it tilt beneath their boots. They knew in their hands that something below was wrong, and they chose to build higher and say nothing. They did not leave a warning, they left a disguise. The tower did not fool the earth, it only fooled us. In a town not far from Pisa, another tower leaned the very same way, and it never got lucky. Without warning, it came straight down, and it took people with it.